Guys, in this video, I'll be showing you how a to-do app is built. I'll walk you through all the functions and everything you need to know about this to-do app. This to-do app has a couple of functionalities. You can add a task, you can remove a task, you can mark a task as completed or uncompleted. Oh, now adding a task, we simply come into here, say play baseball for 3 hours. Add. It's been added, right? Let me zoom this out. It's been added, all right? So look at it over here. Play baseball for 3 hours. I can cancel that out, cancel this out again. Then I can mark this as completed. Read for 30 minutes. I just click on it. If I feel no, I've not completed this task, I click on it again and it's been marked as uncompleted. Now, all this is possible with the use of vanilla JS, no React, no Svelte, no Vue. If I reload, then I have my tasks. Again, nothing is getting deleted. Now, we have just 3 files to handle this. We have the index.html, style.css, and our app.js. Now, for the index.html, we have just these short lines of code, and the major part we need to focus on is on this input. We have the input that collects the information for our task. We have the button that triggers the addition of task, and then we have this unordered list that wraps up all the to-do items that is listed here. Now we are linking our JavaScript file, and remember we also have to link our CSS. Then I'm using the Legend font. So quickly let's move on to the style.css, as this explainer video only want to majorly focus on the JavaScript part. Now in this part, the part that's majorly used by the JavaScript is the completed class that has been added to this list element. All right, so when I click on this, it's canceling out. When I click, it canceled out. The class is being added. So when I come here to inspect, I have a class of completed on it. So when I click it again, see, the class is being removed. When I click it again, the class is being added. And on that class, we have a definition for the class to make the text decoration line through. That's why we have this line through, and an opacity 0.6. That's why it looks a little bit fading. Now, in the app.js, in 3 elements from the DOM, we are selecting the input, we are selecting the btn, and we are selecting the parent of this listed items. Now, to get the input has an ID of to-do input. Then to get the btn, it has an ID of add btn. To get the list, the unordered list, it has an ID of to-do list. So if you come over here, you have all of these IDs: to-do list, add btn, and for the input, we have to-do input. All right. Now, over here, the first thing we need to do is declare a variable and name its name to-do. What is this to-dos variable? It's actually getting the item in the local storage with the name of to-dos. That's every previously created item. If we inspect over here, I'm going to be expanding my browser so that you can see what is actually happening in the local storage. Moving down here, we go into our application, and then we click on the local storage. Let's make sure to expand our browser further. Now clicking on the local storage, we open this, and for this to me, look at this, to-dos. Look at this over here, guys. This one here, this to-dos. Clicking on it, look at the object I have. Look at an array of objects. Look at this. So we have text and completed, text and completed, text and completed for them all. So that is how this is being stored inside the local storage. So if I refresh, Notice they did not disappear. Why? Because they are stored inside the local storage. And we are using the OR operator in case the local storage is empty. We are creating an empty array over here. Now we have a function render to do's, and this function calls a lot of other functions based on some events like the toggle complete and also like the delete to do. So now in this render, so first thing we need to do is pick on the to-do list and set the inner HTML to empty. We're basically initializing and say, okay, if to-do list is empty, that means everything here is going to be empty. We're just initializing this and say the content is going to be empty. Now for the to-dos, we are picking each items of the to-dos using the for each method on the to-dos. Why? Because the to-dos is an array, so we can use the for each on it. And the to-do parameter here is the first item of the to-do, and the index here is the number of the item selected, is the index of the item selected. So now it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3. So now the list over here, we have list equals document.create element list. So we are creating an element of list using the document.create element. Then we are adding a text to this list, and this text we are adding is coming from this to-do item over here. Now, before I move further with this function, let me go to add to-do over here and explain a few things. Now, in this add to-do function, from the input element over here, we get the value of the input and we trim it and we store it in a variable text. Now we say if text is empty, then throw return. That is why as it's empty right now, if I click on add, nothing happens. I click on add, nothing happens. But if I do dance for 5 minutes and I click on add, something happens. So now if it's empty, I'm returning because I do not want to submit an empty task. Now to-dos.push, what is this doing? I want to make sure that, okay, after I've gotten the text from the input, I am pushing the text into this to-dos array, and I am pushing the text as an object. I am pushing this item as an object, and the object is going to have a property of text, which is also the same thing as setting text, then column text as the value. But from ES6, you can do this, and this is saying the key is text, and the value is this text over here. And we are adding a completed property and setting the value to false. Why? Because on default, we want to make sure that every task added is not completed except we by ourselves trigger the completion for that task. Now, after adding the task, notice that after submitting, the input box becomes empty. Why? We want to make sure that after I submitted, it becomes empty. So, smile for 30 days. That's a challenge to you. So now, notice it becomes empty. Why? Because I am clearing the input. I am setting the input to an empty string. Now, I render to-dos again. Now, let's get back to our render to-dos. The major point that brought me here is to show you guys the two properties that is present on this particular objects. We have the text and we have the completed, and it's coming from where we created the to-do item. So over here we have to-do.text. That is the text that will go from our input that we saved when we called the add to-do function. Now if to-do.completed, remember that by default it's false. It can be true depending on how it has been triggered. Now list.classList.add. Now if it is completed, right now by default it's false. So we're going to add this class list. Remember the class list, it's not going to add this class. Remember this class has a strike through and opacity of 0.6. Now this class will not be added when we just add, after adding the to-do, calling that to-do function, it's not going to be added. But if we click on it, it's going to be added. And this is what triggers it to be added. Now we now say list.add events list. Now click. So when we click on this, we want to toggle something. Now, the event we are listening to is the click event. So what we'll just do is create a callback function. We create an arrow function, which is a callback function. And this arrow function, what it is going to do is it's going to trigger whether it's completed or not. Trigger between true and false. So if we move down and go to the toggle complete function, in this toggle complete function, we have we are picking on the to-dos array, and the index over here is the particular one we selected. It can be 0, it can be 1. You know, it's an array, so it has an index. All right, and the index, we are passing it in as a parameter. But remember that in this render tools, we are using for each, which is just like a loop, and we have the index, and it is that index that we got from that for each that word function will be passing inside of here. So it will be easy for us to know the one we are selecting. Now, to those, we are passing in the index over here. Now, dot completed. We are selecting the completed property, and we are setting it to the opposite. So remember, it's a Boolean. So if it's false, we are setting it to true. If it's true, we are setting it to false. So that is what this question mark here is doing. It's just changing it to whatever the opposite is. Then we render the to-dos again to make sure that what we do is updated immediately without refreshing. Now, after doing this, we create an element which is the button. Notice this button was not created in our index.html. We are dynamically creating it for every task that is being added. All right. So now we have delete btn dot text content. This is the X. You can use an icon if you want. Now, for the simplicity of this video, I just used an X. Now, we want to add a class list of delete btn. Why? We want to make it red. We could style it from here, but it makes sense to add a class. Now, delete btn dot add events listener dot click. We are adding the click event to this. Why are we adding it? Notice when we click, we could make this any event, but the proper one to use is the click. Notice when we click, we are able to delete items. Now, in the callback function for this, we really want to stop propagation. We are doing E, which is the event.stop propagation. And why are we even doing this? We are doing this because we want to stop this click event from affecting the parent. What do I mean? Now, if the parent of this button has a click event, if a click event is defined on it, after executing this callback function for this particular button, this event, it goes to the parent and executes the click event too, and executes the callback function that is attached to the parent click event. So we do not want that to happen. So we are stopping the propagation. We are saying, hey, after executing this click event for this one, don't go to the parent and do something else. Just stop there. Now, after that, we call the delete to do function and pass the index. That's, we want to, just like an ID, we want to pass the ID of the one to be deleted. Now, come down over here and you're going to see the delete to do function. Now, for this delete to do function, we are passing in the index here, and we're using the splice on this array to delete this. Now, the index stands from where I want to start the change, and the 1 stands for the number of elements I want to make these changes to. So I want to make this change from this, the ID from this particular index, and I'm changing only that one, that particular one that I am selected, where I'm starting from. That is the only one I want to change. And then I call the render to do function. Again, I repeat again, I am calling this, we are calling this after every function executes, because we want a live update after the event happens. Now, then we do delete to do index. We call this function. Now, we now append this delete btn to this list item. Remember, we created this dynamically for every list item. We also dynamically created. So now we attach this delete btn to this list. Now this list, we now append it also, or attach it inside this to-do list. So basically every listed item or every created task live inside the to-do list element. Now, next, we move down and we find that we have the local storage. What is this local storage doing? It is what enables us that when we reload, it is not being deleted. The items are not deleted. So if it's not stored in the local storage, after reloading, every item clears off. Now we are setting the name to dos. That's like an ID we used to get, we will use to actually get this item back from the local storage when we need it. Now, for the JSON.stringify, is saying, oh, store this as a proper JSON file into the local storage. We already talked about the add to do function. We talked about the toggle complete function, and we talked about the delete to do function. Now, the last thing we want to talk about is calling this add to do function. Notice this add btn over here. It triggers, when it's being clicked, it triggers this add to do function that creates the to do item. Now, remember, I told you it's just basically pushing this into the to-dos array, and it's pushing an object, and that object contains the text that is being extracted from this input element over here, and also by default creating a property completed and setting the default value to false. Now we have a key press, and this key press event on this input, what it is doing is it's what enables us, after listening to the key press event on the input, we are passing in a callback function and picking that same event and setting the key and getting the key. If the key clicked is enter, then it calls this to do add to do function over here. That is why when I add a task and I say I will smile all day and I click on enter, it adds the to do item without me clicking the add button. And by the way, once we reload the page, or once we enter this URL, we want to render to dos. So by default, without adding anything, if there are things added before, that is why here, over here, we are getting all the to dos items in the array. So when we render to dos, it gets them and then display them on the page or render them on the page. I believe I've been able to explain every part of this function, of this logic that makes this to do application over here work. So if you have a question, drop it in the comment section. Let me know. I will attend to your question, and see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.